7-884-8245, and here is Scott Warner.
Hi, this is Scott Warner. Happy New Year to everybody. This is the first show of the year, and even though it's the 8th of January, we're really happy to be here and happy to be able to talk to you. And in this new year, we always want to do things and make new goals because it's a new year, and making goals is a very good thing. I've been a goal maker ever since I was a kid, and learned very early on that it's very important to be able to accomplish things in your life. I was over the Christmas holidays, I was listening to an interesting CD that was Napoleon Hill, and he was talking about his conversation with the devil and how it's quite an interesting conversation, and as you listen to it, whether you believe in the devil or not, it's quite fascinating that the dark energy wants us to just drift along and not accomplish a lot and not create things like we were created to do. And we were created by a magnificent creator in his likeness and image. And it's my belief that we all need to pay attention to our creative energies, because we as human beings, we are able to create, and we are able to manufacture, we're able to engineer, we're able to be architects of buildings and places and things. And you look at all of the old architecture and the ancient ruins, there was definitely architects back then, and they would create things and make things, and their main idea was to create beauty, create beautiful things, create magnificent things. And some of these are, the 8 wonders of the world. And I've been to see many of them. You go to Machu Picchu, there was somebody there who had architecture in mind and created a beautiful city up on a mountaintop there in Peru. And, I've been to ancient Egypt and saw the buildings there that are magnificent, and the pyramids and all of the temples of Isis, and all these different places that were created. And to say we aren't creators is not understanding who we really are. And so today I'd kind of like to talk about creation and what we can do to create things not only for the world but for ourselves, because we have the capacity to basically create whatever we're thinking about. And that's where the creation starts, is with our thoughts, with our intent. And right now we're running a special at the store with weight loss. And 6 years ago I created a weight loss procedure that's very effective. You use these weight loss drops that literally start melting the fat cells and turning the fats into ketones, and you pee out the ketones. But the problem with the ketones is they pull out some potassium out of your body, and they can also pull B vitamins out. So I always recommended to people to take potassium and to take B vitamins. Now, these weight loss drops also help stimulate the glands. It helps the adrenal glands. It helps the thyroid gland. It helps the thymus gland, which is the main immune gland. And it also helps the pituitary and the hypothalamus. Now, if you know much about weight loss, up in the hypothalamus, there are what they call leptin receptors. And these receptors control your appetite and your ability to satisfy yourself, or they call it satiety. And satiety is an important thing because once you feel you've had enough, you stop eating. Well, supposedly, but some of us just don't know when to stop, and so we just eat and eat and eat. You know, when I was 28 years old and studying in medical school, well, actually I was younger than that. I was 24 studying in medical school, and I'd get up and I'd have Doritos with cheese in the middle of the night because I would be up all night studying, and I would get hungry, and so I'd fix myself some treats, and I went from 220 pounds up to 260 pounds by the time I turned 29. So in 5 years, I had gained 40 pounds. And it showed because I wasn't as active as I was because I was busy studying and doing things to do with medicine. And I developed a sore on my shoulder, and I wasn't sure what it was, so I went to a dermatologist, and he said he didn't know, and so he took a biopsy of it, and it came back as a malignant melanoma. Now, at 29, you're going, whoa, that's a cancer, and malignant invasive melanoma is a bad cancer. And so he said, Scott, I think we better do, you know, an MRI scan. We got a brand new one here at Good Sam down in Phoenix, which is known as Banner Health now. But back then, it was a brand new machine, and I was like a guinea pig. So the radiologist put me in the machine and did a scan on me, and he found 3 tumors on my spine. And so he said, Scott, I think we better do one of your head also, because this looks like malignant melanoma, what you had the biopsy of. And so we did a scan of my brain and ended up seeing 3 more tumors. Now, what does this have to do with weight loss? Well, when I treated that malignant melanoma, because medicine could not treat it, if they'd done surgery, I'd have been paralyzed or made a vegetable because of the tumors on the brain and on the back. And if they hadn't have got them all, you know, I'd have been dead anyway. Chemo made it, didn't do a thing to it, and radiation was what made it grow. And so here I am, 260 pounds with malignant melanoma, stage 4, invasive. It had a little tube going down into my one tumor on my back. You know, they followed it down a ways, but they would have had to cut a lot more out. And so here I was. They told me, go home, get your house in order. You're going to be dead in a couple of months. And so I went home, and instead of planning out to being dead, I decided I wanted to live. And so I got on my knees and I started praying for answers. And the answer I got was Hulda Clark. Now, who is Hulda Clark? I asked myself. Never heard of her. So I went to work the next morning, and as God works things, because we are creators and God helps lead us, especially if we ask for answers, I went to work the next day, and there was an article right in the middle of my desk by Dr. Hulda Clark. And in that article, she talked about how cancers were caused by parasites, fungus, virus, and toxins and chemicals in the body. And it talked about how she had helped cure many people's cancers and had found these things in every cancer that she had analyzed as a microbiologist. So I called up the number at the end of the article, and lo and behold, Hulda Clark answered the phone. And, you know, it was so fascinating because she taught me how to cure my cancer with herbs and chelation therapy, Ezyak tea, cat's claw, things that won't harm you, but actually will clean out your body, clean out the bugs, the parasites, the fungus, the virus, all of the toxins and heavy metals and chemicals. So I did what she told me to do, and lo and behold, within 2 months, not only was all of my tumors gone, but I had lost 40 pounds. Now this was pretty remarkable. That's 20 pounds a month in 2 months, doing nothing but cleaning out my system. I didn't have the benefit of weight loss drops back then, but you know, by cleaning out the critters, cleaning out the toxins, I naturally lost weight. Now, when this happened, all the women in my practice were going, Dr. Werner, how are you losing weight? And I told them exactly what I was doing, and so they did the same things. Now, what was remarkable about this was when these women would do the same things I was doing, not only did they lose weight, but some of the diseases I had diagnosed with them had gone away. Like, I was treating women for endometriosis, uterine tumors and fibroids, ovarian cysts and tumors, adrenal cysts and tumors, problems with cervical lesions. And I was amazed because I would go in with a scheduled surgery. I had diagnosed them. I had evidence by video of what they had, and I would go in and go to do the surgery, and lo and behold, it was their endometriosis would be gone, their ovarian cysts would be gone. So here I was ready to pull these tumors out of their body. I was ready to laser the endometriosis, and I didn't need to because it was gone. Now, this was quite fascinating for me, and you know, as I talked to my fellow OBGYNs, all they could say to me is, Scott, you need to be careful because you're going to get into trouble. And I was like, well, how can I get into trouble? I'm curing these people of bad diseases. You know, back then we didn't have really cures for these things. All we could do is surgically remove them, and a couple of years later they'd be back in with the same problems because you had to remove all of it in order to get a cure. And usually by doing the surgery, you only removed what you could see. You couldn't get the microscopic stuff. And so, you know, it got me started doing weight loss with people, but doing it in the correct way of detoxing them, removing the critters, and getting rid of the heavy metals. Now, as I was thinking about talking today, I wanted to talk about this because many people, you know, I'm in a group that's doing group mentoring, and 2 of the 5 want to lose weight. That's their main goals. And so, you know, a lot of us, you know, here in the United States, 60% of us are overweight. 33% of us are outright obese. Now, why is this? Well, as I've practiced medicine and practiced alternative medicine, studied, I've done studies, I've looked at the research, the reason why is we've got too many toxins in our environment. We've got too much radiation in our environment. This is suppressing our immune system because we're creating viruses such as a mutated Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus, variola virus. These viruses, we've actually mutated them to carry DNA into the plants and animals that we're genetically modifying. And so it not only modifies our food, but these viruses stay in the food. They get into our body and start modifying our food and start causing genetic breakage or genetic modifications in our own bodies. And it's modifying our bacteria in our gut. And it makes it so we're not getting enough nutrition, we're not getting enough minerals. And that's causing a myriad of other problems. And so we eat more just to get some vitamins and minerals and nutrition, because we're not absorbing the nutrients as well because of the modifications of our bacteria in our gut. And so we can definitely absorb the sugars, but we're not absorbing the amino acids and the proteins and the good fatty acids. We're lacking these things, and so we eat more to make up for it, to try and get those nutrients, because we're hungry. And it causes us to gain weight, which is not a good thing, because it's harder on our hearts, it's harder on our circulatory system. It gives us a fatty liver. It makes more fat throughout the body. The genetically modified high fructose corn syrup, or some people call it high fructose corn syrup, actually causes liver fat and gives us a fatty liver, and it makes us so we get sludge in our liver instead of a good clean bile, and we end up getting gallbladder surgery because of this thick sludge. And so, you know, we used to have this saying when I was an OBGYN that if you're fat, fertile, and over 40, you end up getting gallbladder problems. And so, you know, as an OBGYN, I've removed my share of gallbladders just because we were trained to do that, because in women it's a huge problem. So we've talked a little bit about, you know, the weight loss and what's caused us to gain weight. One of the other things that I've caused that causes weight gain is not only the parasites, because parasites, actually, there's types of parasites that want you to gain weight because they want more body to parasitize. The toxins, we actually store toxins in the fatty tissues away from our vital organs. And so toxins make us gain weight. Viruses, I talked a little bit about how they're mutating our bacteria and causing us not to absorb our foods, because our bacteria, actually our microbiome, helps us absorb our nutrients and actually helps produce some of the nutrients from the food and helps us absorb it. And a lack of minerals due to the same reason. The bacteria in soil actually helps plants absorb more nutrients and more minerals. So, you know, we all evolved on this earth, and so like plants, if we don't have good healthy bacteria or a microbiome, we don't absorb our nutrients as well. And then the other big culprit is fungus. And fungus has become ubiquitous in our atmosphere, and eating more sugars makes it get into our system, and it takes up residence. And so the fungus actually takes away some of our nutrients and slows our bowels down. If you're having problems with constipation, you've got fungus. So, and fungus eats our nutrients, so we have to eat more. And it actually, fungus eats, if you think about it, fungus loves sugar. And it'll eat the sugar in our bloodstream when it gets into our bloodstream and make us hypoglycemic. So we start out getting hypoglycemic and makes us crave sugars, and it continues on until we end up getting diabetes because we've eaten so many sugars, we've stressed out our pancreas, and we get diabetes and insulin resistance and all that goes through that, and that comes from weight gain also. So if you can get rid of those things, you're much better off. The other things that cause weight gain is emotional trauma and anger. Emotional trauma, believe it or not, causes emotions that get put into our organs and cause energetic lack. And whenever we lack energy within our body, we crave food and we eat food, even if we don't need to eat it. And anger hits our liver and will cause problems with our liver. And our liver is the main organ